Welcome to the Prado Museum. We're here again a few minutes before it opens to the public on the museum's social media programming with our weekly session in English, a project that is supported by our nonprofit American Friends of the Prado Museum. And today we're in a room on the museum map of 57B, and we're going to look at these 4 images that are painted in the 1460s or 70s and who have up until very recently been known as painted by the master of Sopetrán. So if you look at in catalogs up to basically the present moment, that would have been the author. And it gives me the opportunity to talk about how civil society, how people, how we, all of us, can help and have helped over generations preserve our cultural and artistic heritage. And this came up because as I was reviewing, prepare for this talk, I came up with a discovery that I didn't know. And I'd like to take us back, instead of the 1470s, a moment to the 1920s. And this is 1920s in Spain. A group that was called the Spanish Society of Excursions, which to me sounds like they're gonna go spend the weekend climbing mountains, was a very serious group of art historians, engineers, people that were very curious that with the discovery of photography were taking trips out to all over Spain to document historical cultural patrimony. And they documented it with photographs, and they also were very thoughtful and careful to creating publications writing about what they discovered. So in 1929, this group of excursionists went to a monastery of Sopetrán, and it was a monastery, a Benedictine, sorry, that's hard for me to say, monastery that was already in ruins at the time, and one of the shrines, what was still standing, was a shrine nearby. Now this is a monastery that is located outside the town of Torre de Burgo in the province of Guadalajara, and they discovered these panels. And one of the art historians, which is a great connection with the Prado, was Enrique Lafuente Ferrari, and he was a member of this excursionist society, and he wrote about these panels. And he wrote various pages, and he thought that they were Flemish painting, that it wasn't a Spanish painter, that it came directly from the Low Countries, and he wrote that they needed to be protected instead of being left in a shrine, kind of in a very rural area, like we don't know exactly how they were taken care of, but he wrote they needed to be cared for. And it seems like the town was agreed, because within the next 5 years, they passed from the town to the Prado Museum, and here it says, acquired in 1934. So anyway, I love the history of how the objects, are created and how they get to the museum. But this same figure, Enrique Lafuente Ferrari, is here. He's writing about this, and he discovers, and he's only about 30 years old. Well, when he's 80 and has had a career as an art historian, a professor, he's a member of the Royal Academy, he and a group of 300 people in civil society Spain create our sister organization, the Fundación Amigos del Museo del Prado. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have this great connection. So the discoverer of these paintings also created the Amigos del Museo del Prado. And in 1980, it was over just about 300 founders. And today, everyone can be an Amigo del Prado, and there's 45,000 Amigos del Prado. And this is our sister organization that has inspired us to create the US nonprofit of people in the world that want to support the Prado, which is American Friends of the Prado Museum. And of course, we are also a way to be in English. Okay, so having this connection. And then American Friends of the Prado Museum, we have actually contributed to the upkeep and the protection of this in our way to help the professionals at the Prado Museum. In the year 2018, they asked us, and we were able to purchase the newest infrared camera for the technical department. And here I have an image of what the infrared camera can do, and it shows the underdrawing. And so I'm sorry we haven't gotten to the painting yet, but here's a figure that's underneath the paint, which is the soul of the Virgin Mary, who's here. This is what we're seeing here in this image is the death of the Virgin. And with this infrared camera, the technicians can see and experts can see what was designed, everything that's under, without touching the painting as they make decisions as how they're going to restore and what are they going to do. So American Friends actually gave this camera to the Prado Museum, and then, as you see, the works were restored in last year. And we also participated in, there was a problem with these panels in that they're on wood, on Baltic wood, and they were curving, and the frames that they had were kind of were creating tension with the panel, and it was putting in danger the layer of painting. And so we also asked for a grant, and were able to give that grant to the framing department of the museum to create these news frames that are adjusted for the panels. Okay, so what are we seeing? We're seeing two sides of what would have been a larger altarpiece in this monastery of Sopetrán, that the main donor was the first Marquess of Santillana of the Mendoza family, and we have an image. We have an image of the donor here in a pious attitude. Actually, we don't know if this is the first Marquess of Santillana, who was the great protector of this monastery, and we see the monks here that are reading, or the monks also here in the windows, and this very fun image that they're reading in the archive behind the door. So we have the image of the donor or the donor's son, and we also know this because this important Mendoza family, which was a noble family in Castile, they were the Marquess of Santillana, and his son was the first Duque of the Infantado. And these colors on this cloth are the family colors of the important Mendoza family. And he's also, we know a lot of history about this painting. We also know that the first Marquess of Santillana was a protector of the monastery, but also commissioned an image of the Virgin, and we see it here, this beautiful image that was also described to being in a precious case, and we see that the case opens the doors and it has scenes painted on the inside, and it's all in fantastic detail, which is very typical and fantastic of the Flemish or Netherlandish style of painting. And then around the image of the donor, we have three more typical images of the life of the Virgin. We have the Annunciation with fantastic details, even making the dosel of her bed being held up by these red lines to make it very real. Everything is absolutely painted and nothing goes off into the distance. There's very, very fine detail. But they're images that we now know, thanks to the discovery and the restoration. Okay, here we're going to the adoration of the shepherds, and there's figures here that are kind of curious. There's the adoration of the angels, and then here, if this were a shepherd, this is a very fine dressed gentleman. So we don't know who he is, but he's very interesting, for us to see. And we see a shepherd here that's fallen on the ground as he's in awe of seeing these angels up there in red, who's kind of falling back. That's kind of a funny scene. And then the beautiful landscapes that are incorporated. Well, all of these images, the experts have studied and show that it is a Flemish painting, not a painter in Spain. And we know this because of the supports. We also know because he's following images of Rogier van der Weyden, the great Flemish master. And so now we believe the name has just been changed to be a follower of the Master of the Redemption of the Prado. And this is interesting because it's a follower of Rogier van der Weyden. So it's a very fine work, exquisite work that was commissioned directly from the Mendoza family, is what we would interpret, from Castile, directly from the Low Countries. And so this is also interesting, this Castilian connection, trade that's happening with the Low Countries to Castile, to places like Guadalajara in the Iberian Peninsula. So anyway, I was very pleased with this discovery while I was reviewing this work for today, and I wanted to share it with everyone and to come enjoy it. It's been cleaned, and so now other changes is that the architecture wasn't pink before, it was brown, and with the restoration, they've found that underneath it was pink, and all of these fine details, so it's in perfect condition to come and enjoy all of the very tiny details and all of the iconography that is in this amazing painting. So thank you very much for being with us again today, and we will see you again on our next session next week. Thank you.